Hey, welcome to Crossroads. Crime, including murders, is suddenly dropping throughout Latin America. Now, why is this? There are different claims on what's causing it. Some say it's criminals and gangs, migrating to the United States. Others say it's from, some of the tough on crime policies we now see being adopted in some Latin American countries, not all of them. And the big question is, what is it really? Some of this follows the model, notably, of El Salvador cracking down on MS-13, something that has actually been effective in El Salvador. A lot of Western media are criticizing it, saying, how could you be so mean to those poor gang members? Well, let's start by looking at what's now taking place in Venezuela. This is France 24. They say this: Argentina's most violent city, Rosario, best known as the hometown of soccer star Lionel Messi, has in recent months seen a drastic, and some say suspicious, fall in murders. What is causing this? Well, it says the city, which is Argentina's third largest, has had for a long time a murder rate standing at around 5 times the national average in their country, with up to 260 killings per year. Now, they say everything seems to have changed since the end of 2023. What happened? Well, they say that President Javier Milei, the guy with the chainsaw saying he's going to cut away all the fat from the government, he took office and it said he vowed zero tolerance for crime. Now, note that at the same time, the province of Santa Fe, where Rosario is located, is a very violent town, right? It got a new governor, that's Maximiliano Pularo. And note that Pularo, what did he do? Immediately, he imposed harsher conditions on prisoners, particularly gang bosses, because what happens, sometimes these gang bosses get arrested, they go to prison, and they just run the gangs out of prison. It says that he started publishing photos of jail raids and subdued the prisoners. His actions earned him around 30 death threats in his first month in office and prompted a backlash from gangs who killed 4 civilians in March. It notes that Javier Milei, the new president, he then sent federal police and troops to Rosario. And so they've been cracking down on crime and not tolerating this stuff. Now, given that situation, that makes sense in Argentina, right? Start going after the gangs, committing the crimes and committing the murders, and what happens? Well, if you try to start prosecuting and going after gangs and crime, you can expect murders and crime to start going down. That was the effect there, and it worked. But we're also seeing similar drops in other countries that, they haven't really changed in terms of government. Take Venezuela, for example. Bloomberg said this: December of 2023, Venezuela's rate of violent deaths dropped to its lowest level in more than 2 decades, following years of massive migration as both criminals and victims fled the nation's economic crisis. The Venezuelan Violence Observatory registered 26.8 violent deaths per 100,000 inhabitants this year, from a rate of 35.3 for every 100,000 in 2022. So almost cut in half in about the span of a year. And note that one of these individuals, director of the observatory, said in a webcast on Thursday, and notes that that's its lowest level since 2001 and is 1/3 of what it was in 2016. And it's that young people who have traditionally been the main victims of violence have fled the country, and criminals and gangs have also immigrated due to the lack of opportunities to commit crime. They're seeking opportunity to commit crime in America, is what's happening. Now, of course, the leader of Venezuela, who is not recognized by the United States recognizes the opposition as the official winner of the elections there. Well, the individual now in charge there, he claims that the drop in crime is because of... We back on? All right, sorry about that, folks. We're in a different studio today, and so we have some issues, but stick with me. Now, Representative Tony Gonzalez, he's a Republican from Texas. He actually noted this issue in a recent House Homeland Security Committee hearing, talking about the impact of illegal immigration on national security. Let me show you this. Watch.
I would argue that TDA makes MS-13 look like Boy Scouts. And the reason I say that is because each criminal organization that comes always tries to one-up the one before it. I think one of the ways we fix this is we come together, federal, state, and local law enforcement all pull their resources and go after these people. Go after these Venezuelan gangs that are terrorizing us. They may not be on a terrorist watch list. They may not, they may not be on a counter that we have. When I spoke with the director of the ICE, he told me there are over 10,000 known criminal aliens loose in the United States right now. That's, in my eyes, where we need to start, and then we go from there.
Now, that's important stuff. Let me show you a bit more on this issue. This is New York Post. They say a one-time Venezuelan prison gang has erupted into a multinational migrant crime syndicate that is ravaging the United States. And it's the subject of more than 100 police investigations across the nation. This group is Tren de Aragua, the new vicious South American gang that has snuck into the United States among the millions of migrants who have crossed the border, and note that it's peddling drugs, guns, and women across the 50 states. From urban centers like New York City to Chicago to Florida beaches and once tranquil Middle America. In Colorado, it says, the gang even got a green light to shoot at police, according to a federal memo. And so this Latin American gang, coming mainly from Venezuela, is now wreaking havoc across the United States. And it's other gangs also. It's actually not just them. MS-13, the Mexican Mafia, 18th Street, very violent gangs. Many of these have networks that go between the United States and their countries of origin throughout Latin America. And there's also been a lot of talk about El Salvador's model for fighting crime. I'll be talking more about this after we come back from a quick break.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. A new trend is developing in countries throughout Latin America. Crime, including murders, is just suddenly going down all throughout that region. Some analysts are claiming this downward trend is because gangs and criminals are coming here. They're coming to the United States. And obviously, if while your violent criminals and your murderers leave a country, crime is going to go down there, and then they're going to bring that crime somewhere else. Now, like others say, that the drop in crime is because of new tough-on-crime policies that are now being adopted in some of these countries. Now, this drop is happening in Argentina. It's happening in Venezuela. We're also seeing it taking place in places like Brazil. This is from the website of the government of Brazil. They say this: Brazil has the lowest number of murders in 14 years. What's going on? Well, there are some indicators last year on why that is. This is July 2023. It says Brazilian researchers, right? They say the number of violent deaths last year reached the lowest level in more than a decade, puzzling some experts because there has been an explosion of firearm circulation in the country in recent years. So how do you make sense of this, right? Suddenly, crime is the lowest level in 14 years, and this is despite the fact that people have more guns. More guns, less crime. Why is that? Well, the context of that explosion of firearms is important. What happened? Well, the former populist president, Jair Bolsonaro, made it so that regular citizens could own guns. And so the explosion of firearms is law-abiding citizens being able to have guns. So how is it that regular citizens owning guns and not just criminals is suddenly leading to a drop in crime? Well, sounds like a mystery to me, right? Some reports claim that a war between some of the major gangs that took place several years back is also a factor that would not explain the change last year. The truce between some of the major violent gangs because they were having a gang war, that's several years back. And so how is it again that law-abiding citizens having guns caused a drop in crime? Well, maybe it's because regular citizens can suddenly defend themselves, and maybe criminals are becoming a little less willing to try their luck. Now, that being said, some other stuff is going on too. Let me show you this, folks. Now, one sec. Now, again, in Latin America, it's all kind of mixed. It's not just one case all over the whole region. Different countries have different factors that are leading to this. It does seem, again, that there is some truth to the issue that Tren de Aragua is causing a lot of these problems. That's mostly the factor in Venezuela. Country by country is seeing different factors. Now, let me show you this. This is Crisis Group, May of 2023. They say this: across Latin America, organized crime and a group of this is rising in violence have threatened the residents' safety and left governments grappling for effective responses. What do they do about it? And it's that overall, homicide rates have plateaued in recent years, albeit at the highest levels in the world. The most violent place on the face of the planet, right? And even fallen in notoriously violent countries such as Colombia and El Salvador. The picture is still grim. It's around a third of all murders around the world occur in Latin America each year, with many of or most of them attributed by national authorities to organized crime. In other words, it's not just regular robberies or whatever else, it's gangs. It's criminal organizations causing the problems in these countries. Now, notice that Latin America's new criminal landscape has repercussions beyond its borders. European Union member states are struggling with the surge in cocaine trafficking to European shores as the continent becomes a preferred export destination for the drug. And so Latin America, the problems they have of organized crime are overflowing to other countries. And a big part of that is the drug trade, right? One of their big GDP products is drugs. Now look, this is also where the solution to crime comes into place. What do you do about it? Well, there's different ideas on this. El Salvador has kind of become the working model for a lot of Latin America. And especially, mostly, right, not just for every leader there, it's mostly resonating with the populist presidents, right, so-called, who are now getting elected. Individuals like Javier Milei, individuals like Bolsonaro, these people took a harsher stance on cracking down on organized crime. Now, Reuters said this about the El Salvador model. They said the number of homicides in El Salvador dropped nearly 70% during 2023. The Central American country's security authorities said this, again at the time, crediting a prolonged state of emergency declared by the government of President Nayib Bukele to fight crime gangs. And so rather than just let them do their thing, he is very strongly cracking down on them. And it's that Bukele's crackdown has been broadly popular with Salvadorians weary of years of gang violence, extortion, and drug dealing. But it notes that human rights groups have said the crackdown has included abuses such as torture, death in custody, and arbitrary detention. So how dare you arrest and treat MS-13 badly? That's what they're saying, right? And it's a state of emergency declared in early of 2022 allows police, right, what does it do? It lets the police go and swiftly arrest and jail suspected gang members while suspending their right to a lawyer and court approval of preliminary detention. If they think someone's a gang member, they basically just go and grab them, throw them in prison, and so what's happened? Well, it's not clear whether all these people are actually guilty, which is actually why they're saying maybe it's a human rights issue. But they've also seen that crime is going down exponentially. Now, note that since it went into effect, security forces have arrested nearly 75,000 suspected gang members and released 7,000, according to official data. So, of course, they're not just keeping them there forever. They're also seeing which ones are actually guilty and which ones aren't. Now, like, the issue is that a lot of American news outlets and news outlets in other parts of the world, Well, they've been heavily criticizing El Salvador for going after the gangs, right? Again, although Latin America has the highest murder rates in the entire world, more than like worst parts of Africa, even though it's the worst in the world for this, they're saying that you can't treat the gangs badly, even though the gangs, again, are making some of these countries unlivable. For example, a lot of the mass migration coming to the U.S. from some countries like Guatemala and stuff, it's because of the gangs in a lot of cases. Now, just as an example, let me show you what BBC said last year. This is BBC, May of 2023. They say, El Salvador gangs, mass arrests bring calm, but at what price, right? Now, here's The Economist just a few months ago saying something similar. They say the world's most violent region needs a new approach to crime. Gangs are gaining ground in Latin America. Iron fist policies won't beat them back. Well, again, it goes country by country. We're seeing it's actually working in El Salvador. It's working in many of these countries, in fact. It's working in Argentina. It's not working in other countries. For example, Mexico, it's not working in Haiti. It's not working in countries that have tried to kind of become friends with the gangs or just let them do their thing. That's the difference. Now, it seems the issue is this. Those so-called iron-fisted policies, they seem to be the only method that is working. The only thing they've found so far that can actually work against powerful cartels, some extremely violent gangs. Because, for example, in Mexico, they have elections where you have politicians coming in saying, hey, I'm going to get tough on crime. What happens? They get executed. They get assassinated. They kill them. And so you can't even have politicians come in saying they're going to fix the problem because the gangs murder them. So what do you do about this? Now look, this is getting the attention of some of the leaders in these countries who want to put an end to the crime and the violence. Bloomberg Businessweek said this in February. They said in only 2 years, Nayib Bukele transformed El Salvador from one of the most dangerous countries in Latin America, meaning it's one of the most dangerous countries on the face of the planet, to among the safest. That sent his popularity soaring, even as he's come under criticism for an increasingly authoritarian bent, right? Because again, he's going after the gangs. Now, notice that Honduran President Xiomara Castro is also using a state of emergency to facilitate a crackdown on organized crime. In Honduras, which again has a very high crime rate, you have about 5 gangs totally terrorizing the country, they're adopting the El Salvador model of cracking down on organized crime. You notice that mayors in Peru successfully pressured President Dina Boluarte to emulate at least some of what they're calling the Bukele plan, again modeled after Bukele in El Salvador. You notice they're doing this by suspending constitutional rights and allowing the military to take charge of work normally done by police. What is that work? That work is fighting against cartels and gangs. Because again, a lot of these gangs are paramilitary. A lot of them basically have the arms and vehicles and equipment of a small military. And police can't really fight against them. Not to mention the fact that, again, because of corruption and because of assassinations, anybody who tries going after them tends to get killed. They're having the military take over this. Now notice that in Ecuador, where the explosion of violence tied to murderous drug gangs has roiled what was once one of Latin America's most peaceful countries, President Daniel Noboa is boasting about plans to build prisons on ships and Bukele-style mass detention centers on land to accommodate all the people he's arresting. They're going after all these gangs, and there's a huge number of gang members, which means that they, again, have to arrest a lot of people. The problem, again, you're having with a lot of the media and criticisms of this is there are so many criminals, there are so many gang members that they do not fit in normal prisons. And so if you need to arrest murderers and rapists and drug traffickers, what do you do with them? Well, you got to put them in prison. And when you build new prison facilities, well, what does it look like? It looks like prisons built for a whole lot of people. They're getting criticized for cracking down on crime because there are so many people they have to go after. That's the problem these countries are having. But again, the model that's working and the model that's being adopted in many countries, again, Peru, Ecuador, others, is the Bukele model. But look, back to the other issue. The big question here is whether drops in crime are happening throughout Latin America because they're sending their criminals here to the United States. And I'll be talking about this only on EpochTV.com. So those of you watching on YouTube, Facebook, X, Rumble, come and join us on EpochTV.com. Not only will you get access to the rest of my show, you'll also be able to join our live Q&A. I'm going to answer some questions. We'll be talking about stuff. Click on the link in the description below. Come and join us on Epoch TV. And before we continue, let me show you a quick trailer for my documentary, The Final War, the 100-year plot to defeat America. You can also watch that on EpochTV.com. And that said, folks, I will see you all for the rest of the episode on Epoch TV in just a moment.
The greatest threat facing the United States is the CCP.
The Epoch Times investigation team had studied the CCP for years, but what we uncovered was yielding evidence beyond our imagination.
With Chairman Mao, with the Prime Minister, our talks have been characterized by frankness.
The Clinton administration said, oh, don't worry about it. This will be a poison pill for China.
China's strategic goal is to make sure that the U.S. has 4 enemies, and one of them must be a terrorist group.
We are giving of our life's blood so that the Chinese Communist Party can survive and thrive.